The master time factor, does it exist? Is it fake? According to the YouTube comments in my videos, I don't know how to use it. And if I did know how to use it, I wouldn't be sharing it online. And I get it. So what does modern theory of technical analysis teach you? It teaches that the random walk theory, which is a modern theory, would state that stock prices are random. The past movement or trend of a stock price or market cannot be used to predict the future. So past movement or trend of a stock price or market cannot be used to predict the future. That goes basically against anything that technical analysis would teach you. But that is sort of the modern theory of markets, and it comes and falls right under the random walk theory. So what about W.D. Gann? What does W.D. Gann think about all this? Well, obviously nothing today because he's passed. But W.D. Gann developed something called the master time factor. And he said it's a cycle method which was developed by W.D. Gann, and it was used to forecast the markets by finding the historical cycles that are repeating in the markets at the current time. So it's a starkly contrast difference between the random walk theory, which states that markets are random and past movement or trends cannot be used to predict the future, and the master time factor, which was done by W.D. Gann, was used to forecast the markets by finding the historical cycles that are repeating in the markets at the current time. Now, I use the master time factor, or at least a method of it, both publicly and privately in my videos. And today, I'm not going to teach you how to use the master time factor. I teach that in our Gann Mastery program. But I am going to show you proof that the master time factor does exist and that you can use it. Now, there are two ways to prove this. The first way is by showing you some of our back-end stuff. For example, what's in the School of Change. And basically, we do forecasts every year. I've got only the last 2 years I'm working on 2024 at the moment uploaded into the back-end. But in 2022, after we went through all the historical cycles that we were forecasting for the year, there were some hot topics which we were looking at. And some of them, for example, included issues with the Queen of England. Now, this is 2022. Issues with Taiwan, possible strikes in mining related, terror attacks and school shootings, and no major war involving the US. Okay, so last year on February 13th, I said that based on all the historical data and timing cycles, etc., we are likely for 2022 to have issues with the Queen of England. Now, when I put these out on Facebook, I can't go into specifics, but in the report, I went into very specifics. What happened last year? Well, the Queen of England died. Now, I found the time cycle for that. You could call it a fluke, but I used the master time factor to find that cycle, and I highlighted that there was going to be issues with the Queen of England. We know what happened next. We then took a look at Taiwan. Now, Taiwan, yes, had been in a form of state of chaos for the last, 20, 30 years, where they've been conditionally subjected to China's threats of war continuously. But what we're looking for are hotspots in the time cycles, okay? Now, one of the hotspots was activating for last year, and that was when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, and there were missiles sent from China around Taiwan and threats of war. We can see that the threats of war within Taiwan are now fading. Now, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen because there are some cycles coming up soon, but the major hotspot for Taiwan has decreased. If we go into, for example, some events that we were looking at for this year, and I go through and I show you how to basically build them out, you can follow the framework that I use. I show you how to do it basically. Some of the hot topics that we were looking at were continued major weather events. Obviously, that's a continued theme over the last few years, and it'll reach a hotspot before beginning to fade out. Issues with North Korea. North Korea's nuclear program has continued to be an issue this year. It was more of a hotter issue at the very end of last year and the beginning of the year. Has sort of faded out now. We had lots of issues coming up in the Middle East. and then surrounding countries, such as Pakistan. But one of the major issues which we wrote about, if we scroll up, we can see the cycle playing out, involved Israel. And we know what's happened with Israel with its war again. There was possible hotspots in Sri Lanka. I haven't really seen anything major. The hotspot was forecasting for a potential war in Sri Lanka. They've had a lot of violence this year, but not like a full-blown war, which is I guess you can say that's good. Possible terror attack involving the US or US Embassy. Yes, that was already hit. Major world-breaking robbery. You could basically pinpoint that to the gold heist on, was it the Canadian airline? Ongoing issues relating nuclear threats and war. Has that not been... Yes, I guess you could say if you didn't use the master time factor and you just looked at geopolitical events, you could say, yes, that is a major event that we should be watching out for. But we're using the master time factor to pinpoint the major events, okay? Protests, coups, assassinations, and civil unrest. Just look at what's going on in the Middle East, etc., and around the world. So what I do, if we scroll up, and I can't scroll up because unfortunately this will give away the method, and I'm actually teaching the method right now for the 2024 course. As I'm basically producing it, I'm teaching how to do it. Okay, I'm going through the master time factor, and I'm teaching people how I analyze the markets, what cycles I'm looking at, etc., and how to actually produce their own personally for the years ahead. For example, if I was to stop doing this, you'd be able to produce your own. So sure, we can do it for world events, major world events, and I've been showing people how to do that publicly for a very long time. What about the stock market? Can we turn this random walk, which is modern theory, okay? Can we turn this random walk and get some form of cycle? Well, yes, we can. And we can use Gann mass pressure charts. I'm going to show you from 2018 out to 2023. Yes, I'm going to be showing you this year, basically what a cycle would look like, okay? Now, if we use historical data, we can pop this on the chart and we can build a framework for what the year is going to look like. Now, if we knew nothing about 2012 and we used this tool, which is called a Gann mass pressure chart, and it's another theory that I'm teaching, which is using Gann's master time factor. If we knew nothing about 2012, well, we would know that possible rising prices into March, so rising prices into March. After March, we should be on alert for falling prices into July. Rising prices after that into possibly September. Declining prices, we should be looking for a steep decline in prices after that. And then rising prices into the end of the year. If we look at the actual market, we can see that the markets rose up into March, fell for a little while before pushing higher, breaking the tops, before declining, following the cycle lower. The markets then pushed higher. As the cycle pushed lower, the market sort of got stagnated. The markets then pushed higher into September. This cycle called for a steep decline lower. The market didn't really do much before declining lower into November, and then the end of year rally. So that is the master time factor on one sense, but there are ways to optimize this master time factor and get a tighter curve. Now, unfortunately, I cannot show you that on this video because that would be giving away the master time factor publicly, which would then prove that I know how to use it, which would then prove that it does exist. So what I'm going to show you is the same tool. If I highlight this, we can see that it is indeed the mass Gann pressure chart, which you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen where it says February 9th, November 18, and it says Gann mass pressure. So we are using the Gann mass pressure chart. Now we can go in and modify this. If I press this little button here, that'll show you the cycles that I'm using, okay? So if we were to come to 2018, we wanted to get a framework for what the year would look like. Well, we'd be looking for a short rally higher, a decline, a rally, a decline, rising prices into the end of the year, and then a sharp sell-off. Okay, that is Gann's mass pressure chart, and that is using Gann's master time factor, okay? This theory that everyone says that I don't know how to use or it doesn't exist, I'm showing you right now, 2019. Basically, if you were to just to build a mass pressure chart for 2019, you would have been bullish for the majority of the year. No doubt, there are various ways that you can build this chart, and different cycles that were playing out were showing you different outcomes. This one here basically just said rising prices into around June, stagnation, rising prices into July, with a top in August before a decline. In this instance, the market inverted in this point. That's why the forecast is up, but the market's down, so a slight inversion. The market did bottom in October as per the forecast before rallying prices. Wouldn't have 2019 been an easy run for you? Okay, so let's move away from this random theory that markets are random, and let's start to focus on the cycle method developed by Gann, which is the master time factor. And it is used to forecast the markets by finding the historical cycles that are repeating in the markets at the current time. All right, 2020. What did 2020 have in store? Well, basically a short rally up at the start of the year. Let's say, for example, you followed this to the T. You would have sold out in January. You would have been expecting a huge decline in prices. That's quite a large drop if you compare it to, these little ones back here. A huge decline at the start of the year with the low, in March. You would have then been waiting for other signals to occur, because then you would have been able to buy and get that rally. So you would have sold basically the top, bought around the bottom, and ridden it out. And sure, the cycle is very choppy, just as the market was at the time. Basically, you've used past cycles to determine what the future is likely to do. Now again, if you're using the master time factor, it's not a buy and sell signal service. It's not a buy and sell signal tool, I should say. Basically, the master time factor was trying to uncover the cycles that are playing out and give you the ability to see into the future just a little bit. 2021. Well, what do we got here? We got a slight inversion where a low was suggested in January. A low occurred in end of January. Market rallying higher, falling off, rallying higher, falling off, rallying higher, falling off, rallying higher, falling off, and finishing the year higher. Basically, the framework for 2021 was just rising prices, though, using the master time factor. Again, I'm using the Gann mass pressure tool, and if we basically go into the settings of this tool, all we're doing is putting in years that we think are going to be repeating in the cycle, and then we're going to be inverting years as we get a polarity flip in some other cycles. Again, I teach this in our program. 2022. Well, what would you be looking for in 2022? You're looking for basically falling prices before an end of year rally. So from the very start of the year, falling prices, a slight rally, falling prices, a slight rally, falling prices, then an end of year rally, and a basically final month decline. Just look at the basic chart pattern. The only difference you have, if I get a pencil, is this low occurred here, and then this top basically occurred the same time period before it. The low was on point, the rally high was on point, this top was on point, this low was on point, and then you would have been watching for a low. You can get some very good accuracy with these. For 2023, which will see us out into the end of the year, we'd be watching for a decline into the start of the year. Everyone, if you remember what happened, you know that the world was on edges. All the banks around the world were collapsing. But if we were using, I shouldn't say around the world, basically American banks were collapsing at the time, and that was hitting our hotspot, which was occurring in March. And then we're basically looking for rising prices into July, and then a decline. And now something that we're watching for is rising prices to see out the end of the year. And that is why in many of my videos, I've suggested that possibly we're going to get rising prices into the end of the year. Okay? So now you know why I'm thinking what I'm thinking, and it's because we're using Gann's master time factor. And again, we're using it to forecast the markets by finding the historical cycle that is repeating in the markets at the current time. So this is Gann's master time factor. You can use it in the stock market, you can use it in the commodity market, and you can use it to forecast world trends. I'm teaching all this in the Gann Mastery Program. Yes, I'm teaching it all. And it's your decision if you want to join and add this to your knowledge base. Once the master time factor or our 2024 report has been produced, and I show you the methods that I use, the price will be going up to $2,999 USD. There will be no further discounts, no further promotions on it. That'll be the ongoing price for the foreseeable future, and it may be risen after that. This is a very powerful tool. I've been learning how to do it for over 10 years, and as each year progresses, I get better and better at it. And now I want to show you how to use it, because possibly eventually I'll stop doing these myself, or I'll move to personal. So if you want to learn how to do it yourself, well, you're going to have to find someone who can teach you, or spend years figuring it out for yourself. I'm going to teach you how to do it. If you want to do it, you can just join. That's all I have. This is the master time factor.